New rule in honor of the Academy Awards show this Sunday. Tonight, I would like to commemorate the moment 50 years ago that transformed the Oscar telecast into what it is today. A 4-hour lecture on how bad most people have it by the people who have it. Rail against privilege, but you avail yourself of the greatest privilege of all, to remain clueless. Dave Chappelle lashed out at me last month because I called him out for saying there was more free speech in Saudi Arabia than here. Well, I was right. What he said was stupid. America has many problems, including free speech issues on both left and right, but we're real different than Saudi Arabia. If you don't believe me, try opening a lesbian art gallery there.
Bill Maher has just unleashed a wave of explosive claims, throwing Hollywood into serious turmoil. As many have noticed, the once thriving film industry has been steadily declining, and Maher insists the blame lies squarely within Hollywood itself. His commentary is sharp, revealing, and unapologetically direct. We've gathered every major moment. So make sure to subscribe, strap in, and let's dive right in.
You know, it's not one that the woke can watch and not throw up, because I call their shit out and the fact that people are laughing shows that it's funny. When you do stupid things, it's funny, and the left did a lot more stupid things in the last 5 to 10 years. And I'm a comedian. I go where the gold is. And it's hitting the side of a barn to make fun of some of this shit.
Sure, it's too easy.
I mean, if you think, I quoted like very esteemed publications like The Atlantic, or saying things like, separating sports by sex doesn't make sense. Well, if that's not of course it does. If anybody can't do 5 minutes on that,
yeah,
or Mr. Beast, who was helping disabled people, and the Washington Post guy was tweeting like, he thinks disability is something that needs to be solved.
Maher's first major revelation came during a conversation with David Spade and Dana Carvey, where he explained that Hollywood insiders had quietly begun treating him as a conservative. The reason? Not a party switch, but his willingness to critique the far left. Maher says that merely challenging progressive dogma was enough to create discomfort and distance. There was no dramatic cancellation or public outrage, just fewer invitations, colder receptions, and an invisible label placed on him. According to Maher, his offense wasn't conservatism, but independence. In today's Hollywood climate, stepping beyond the accepted narrative is viewed as betrayal. By criticizing excesses on his own side, he found himself edged out, reinforcing his belief that an industry claiming to celebrate free expression only supports it when it stays safely aligned.
Walking in, some reporter asked me why I wasn't wearing a lapel pin for the first Minneapolis shooting a couple of weeks ago, and I said, well, it was a terrible thing that happened, and it shouldn't have happened, and if they didn't act like such thugs, it wouldn't have had to happen, but I don't need to wear a pin about it. Now, please understand, I had no idea this question was coming, and so tonight, I'd like to say that if I had the chance to think about it, my answer would be exactly the same. I hope I didn't spoil the perfect record of pins and ribbons solving all the world's problems.
Maher didn't retreat or soften his tone. Instead, he intensified it. He kept aiming pointed criticism at the industry, openly calling out what he sees as hypocrisy, and even dedicated a sizable portion of his latest comedy special to challenging what he considers woke overreach in Hollywood. While others may have chosen caution to protect their standing, Maher embraced the pushback and used it as motivation. The irony, however, is striking. After years of distancing themselves, Hollywood suddenly nominated him for another award. Maher admitted he found the reversal both intriguing and absurd. The same establishment that once sidelined him now seems eager to bring him back into the fold, raising questions about whether its principles are steadfast or simply adaptable when convenient. When he attended the event, the situation only sparked further controversy.
Can't name a problem from guns to AIDS to bullying to breast cancer that still exists after people wore a ribbon for it. Except all of them. You fucking... 3 years ago, everybody was all into Ukrainian flags. What happened to that? Another cause tossed into the junk drawer with yesterday's choke collar? Get out of here with your virtue-signaling body ornaments. They're just crucifixes for liberals. Because every time I see one, I think, Jesus Christ.
Maher argues that Hollywood prioritizes symbolic activism over genuine, effective change, and he refuses to participate in what he sees as empty displays. In his view, flashy gestures have replaced meaningful action. He questions the tangible impact of these performances. Does wearing a pin at an awards ceremony truly address systemic problems in Minneapolis? Does draping a keffiyeh over formal wear in America resolve the complex realities of the conflict in Palestine? Maher's intention, he says, isn't to trivialize serious issues, but to highlight the emptiness of virtue signaling when it stops at optics. He believes these gestures are more about personal validation than measurable change. Hollywood applauds itself for raising awareness and then swiftly shifts to the next trend, avoiding the difficult, sustained work real solutions demand. For Maher, activism without substance is mere theater, and theater, he argues, is Hollywood's specialty.
But, congratulations for raising awareness. The awareness you really care about, which is how wonderful you are. Ricky Gervais once told the award show crowd, "Don't use it as a platform to make a political speech. You're in no position to lecture the public about anything. You know nothing about the..." This is where celebrities say, "How dare you? We're citizens with just as much right to speak out." Agreed, you absolutely do. I'm just saying don't. Having the opposite effect of what you want.
Maher was blunt in his assessment of celebrity activism, describing much of it as performative rather than purposeful. He contends that many stars aren't driven by conviction, but by conformity. When one person adopts a symbol, others quickly follow, not out of belief, but out of fear of standing apart. Maher even suggested that some participants likely don't fully understand the causes they publicly support. To him, this herd mentality reveals how superficial much of Hollywood's activism has become. It's less about genuine engagement and more about maintaining status and image. When activism turns into a fashion statement, he argues it loses authenticity and credibility.
You rail against privilege, but you avail yourself of the greatest privilege of all, to remain clueless. Pell lashed out at me last month because I called him out for saying there was more free speech in Saudi Arabia than here. Well, I was right. What he said was stupid. America has many problems, including free speech issues on both left and right, but we're real different than Saudi Arabia. If you don't believe me, try opening a lesbian art gallery there.
He further claimed that this brand of woke activism isn't just hollow, it's damaging the entertainment itself. According to Maher, audiences have become increasingly skeptical. Viewers no longer regard celebrities as trustworthy voices on serious issues because they seem disconnected from ordinary life. What was intended to appear compassionate now often feels patronizing, as though wealthy elites are lecturing everyday people from a moral pedestal. Maher also points to glaring hypocrisy. Stars advocate sacrifice and fairness while remaining insulated from the consequences of the policies they endorse. This widening gap has weakened public trust, and that distrust spills into the movies and shows they create. When audiences feel condescended to, they disengage, and eventually they stop watching.
To come up with new categories for the awards. The Golden Globes came up with a new one this year that basically picture people liked. They had, they had become such self-congratulating, virtue-signaling bores that they had to go, oh yeah, let's make a category for that. People actually paid to see something great. So there's some new Oscar categories. Would you like to hear the Oscar category? I know you would.
Maher also addressed Dave Chappelle, criticizing his assertion that there is more free speech in Saudi Arabia than in the United States. Maher found a comparison puzzling, given the stark contrast in their records on human rights and speech protections. One nation enshrines free speech in its constitution, while the other is widely known for punishing dissent. He argued that the distinction should be obvious, making the remark all the more surprising. According to Maher, such sweeping and poorly grounded statements contribute to declining public respect for celebrity commentary. When influential figures speak carelessly, they risk sounding uninformed rather than courageous, further eroding trust.
New rule in honor of the Academy Award show this Sunday. Tonight, I would like to commemorate the moment 50 years ago that transformed the Oscar telecast into what it is today. A 4-hour lecture on how bad most people have it by the people who are constantly amazed when I rewatch movies from only a decade or so ago. And they were made in a way that today would get you burned at the Twitter stake.
Maher then shifted focus to Hollywood's obsession with awards, arguing that the industry has diluted their significance by multiplying categories that feel unnecessary. What once celebrated true excellence has, in his view, morphed into a participation culture where nearly everyone receives recognition. This overexpansion, he says, has quietly stripped awards of their prestige. Audiences increasingly perceive these ceremonies as bloated spectacles that serve insiders more than artistry. Rather than honoring exceptional storytelling or craftsmanship, the events often feel self-congratulatory and disconnected. As a result, viewers are tuning out, unwilling to sit through hours of what they see as self-praise. Maher's message is simple. When everything earns an award, the value of achievement diminishes and the public stops caring.
It's complicated. From 2009, to name just one of many I could choose, was made by a who's who of the most blue ribbon certified Hollywood liberals, woke approved and Democratic Party contributing, from the stars to the producers to the director. But it apparently occurred to none of them to have any kind of minority in the cast. You would need a divining rod to find a person of color within 500 feet of this movie set.
Ultimately, Maher's central argument is stark. Hollywood has drifted away from the people it aims to entertain. From performative activism and inflated award shows to misguided celebrity commentary and preachy storytelling, he believes the industry has replaced authenticity with self-congratulation. Instead of crafting compelling narratives, it often seems focused on signaling virtue and instructing its audience. Viewers have taken notice, responding by tuning out. Box office returns decline, ratings fall, and public confidence wanes. Maher insists he is not opposing progress or meaningful advocacy. He is opposing hypocrisy and shallow symbolism that overwhelms art. Coming from someone once comfortably embedded within the system, his critique carries weight. If Hollywood hopes to regain relevance, he argues, it must listen more and posture less. Otherwise, the downturn won't simply persist, it will intensify. And that wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more.